What if one mistake meant losing hundreds of hours? What if it meant losing your mount, spells, armor, weapons, enchantments, potions, all your items, and all of your gold?
I'm so f***ing stupid.
This is what makes WoW Classic Hardcore a very difficult game to review. The game wasn't designed around this game mode. It was added after people had attempted the challenge themselves. The challenge became so popular, the developers took note and added official hardcore servers. For those that don't know what it is, Classic Hardcore WoW is a version of World of Warcraft as it was released back in 2004, hence the name Classic. It has none of the updates or changes made in the future, unless it happened before any of the expansions came out. The main difference being that death has extreme consequences. Actual death. When your character dies, they're gone forever. No respawning, no long walk back to where you died. None of that. Once your character is dead, it can never walk the plains of the living again. On this server. That makes this an especially difficult game to review, because nothing is intentional. Still, I am going to make an attempt to review it. When Blizzard made the game in 2004, they never thought of the idea that people would play this game with the idea that once you die, you're gone forever. This was originally a self-imposed community challenge. People tried it out and it became a big enough idea that Blizzard decided to add it to the game, giving a hardcore mode their own servers. This was for good reason. Due to WoW's team-based activities, dungeons, and raids, you didn't want to have a group where, say, 3 people are on hardcore and 2 people are not, as those 2 people not on hardcore may be prone to making larger mistakes or taking risks that get the other people permanently killed. If they had kept this game mode on the same servers as everyone else, it would simply just not have worked for a variety of factors, and so the hardcore servers were born. I've never really played a game quite like Hardcore WoW. It has been both one of my favorite and worst experiences playing a video game ever. Every time I died, I would keep coming back to it. Honestly, during my hardcore phase, I barely touched any other game. It completely consumed me, and I kept coming back. Even after brutal losses, I played it for about 2 years. It takes a lot of time to reach max level in WoW normally. The quoted average is about 240 hours of gameplay. That is roughly about 2 hours a day for 4 months. Do keep in mind it would actually take longer in hardcore, as there are some quests that you may just want to skip. They might be too risky, or there might be some restrictions holding you back from leveling quickly. You can only do each dungeon once a day, which prevents one of the most effective leveling methods of just doing the same dungeon over and over and over to farm high amounts of XP and really good gear. You also have to factor that you are most likely going to be leveling a profession alongside leveling your character, as it is necessary to A, make gold so you can buy better equipment, and B, actually allow you to craft things that may be beneficial for your survival, which will take even more time, as some people, on average, don't do that when they're leveling. Due to the nature of the game being permadeath, every adventure becomes somewhat risky. You are chronically weak, especially early on. Or maybe just I was. As some of you may know, I played a warrior. This class is especially infamous for how difficult it is to level early on. You can usually handle one enemy just fine, but once you're getting attacked by more than one enemy at a time, it becomes a 50-50 dice roll on whether or not you make it out alive. Survival in hardcore often comes down to preparation. Potions, gear, even bombs crafted through engineering can mean the difference between life and death. As a warrior, I was usually always using strength potions just to make me a pinch stronger, and I always kept 5 healing potions close to my level, as well as 5 lower level backup potions. So if it wasn't life or death, and I just needed a little boost, I wouldn't have to use my expensive potions. Part of the adventure in this game is preparing for the adventure. Making sure your character is properly trained, you have the proper potions on reserve, the armor and weapons you carry are good enough to help you survive. Characters that are engineers can keep bombs on standby that stun enemies just long enough to where if they do get extremely overwhelmed, there is a much better possibility of them successfully running away and staying alive. Enchanting some of your armor to give you that little bit of edge to make you just a little bit stronger. The thing is, each character can only have 2 professions, and usually it's more like 1, as you usually need a gathering type of profession and a crafting like profession. Some of the other professions may craft ingredients that you may need. You can't mine your iron, make potions, make bombs, make armor, enchant your gear all on one character. Survival is a group project. You may need to find reliable business partners, or in the real world, we call these people friends, to ensure that you're putting yourself in the best situation to have the best survival outcomes. This is actually pretty cool, as the game forces you to interact with people and the economy to survive. The only way you can do more than one is if you level another character. Something I would do is make a low level character and send potions over to my higher level characters. There are little tricks of the trade you can do like that to make things easier on yourself. But sometimes it's just not all that viable, especially to level 10 characters at the same time. Especially if you have a job or really anything else going on in your life. Some of my favorite gaming moments come from Hardcore Classic. In the northern regions of the map, there's a dungeon called Shadowfang Keep. This is typically a horde dungeon as it's closer to one of their starter zones, and there is little next to no quest there for the Alliance. To get up there you need to take a long journey, but there are some pretty good rewards in the dungeon from killing the bosses inside if you are bold enough to make the trek. Part of the trek involves you going through a zone called the Arathi Highlands. This is a zone for people much higher levels than would typically be doing Shadowfang Keep. My group that I was doing it with all decided we would meet in wetlands and go up together as the area can be dangerous to walk through alone. As we made our way through the zone, we got attacked by 2 mobs. At this level, even the 5 of us would struggle to bring one of these mobs down, especially without taking mass casualties. Attacking the mob would not prove fruitful in any way, as we would be able to do little next to no damage. Or the worst part was, we were walking in a straight line, and it attacked us in the middle. I was walking in 4th place. I improvised and used an ability called Intimidating Shout, which makes enemies flee away, but the enemies resisted it and it had no effect. Our mage hit it with a frost spell to slow down its walking speed, and the guy behind me threw a grenade at it to slow it down and stun it. After that, we all quickly booked it. I had a level 20 warrior, and we were doing dead mines. I was, of course, the tank. We were in that boiler room, and things started to get hairy. Someone started running, and everyone's health started dropping. It was the healer. He still had plenty of mana to spare, but he ran anyways. I made the call to run. I did my best to fend off the enemies, and I went down first. 2 others went down shortly after. I was only able to save 1 person by making that call. Just like in real life, you can't control every variable. People will become cowards when shit starts to get real and just bail on you. Or roach out. Sometimes you'll do everything in your power to save someone, and there's simply just nothing that you can do. This is one of the game's greatest strengths. It's also one of its greatest weaknesses. Ensuring you have to rely on others always puts everyone in a state of uneasiness, but it also makes for some of the deepest immersion and focus I've ever had in a video game. It's stories like these where your heart rate starts to pump and people start to panic that make the game one of the most engaging I've ever played. When you level, you will have multiple experiences like this. Sometimes you will just die of some dumb shit though. The consequences both make the game very exciting and very stressful. Azeroth, in Classic, is an extremely dangerous place, and it can be very unforgiving. Every level 60 you see is likely littered in the blood of many others. The ones that were jackasses, the ones they couldn't save, and the ones they tried to save. Because this is a server where death is permanent, Classic Hardcore has one of the most interesting communities I've ever seen. On the first server, there was a guy named Zuma. Zuma was an alchemist who had a monopoly on the potions of speed market. This is an essential item for players up to level 50, as if you get in a real tight spot, being able to sprint away could essentially save your life. He kept an iron grip on the market. If someone tried to sell at a lower price, he would immediately buy it and then sell it at his. They try to sell the material to make the potion a lower price, he buys the material and resells at his price. He would constantly be in trade chat promoting his product and saying, "Only buy from Zuma. Other sprint potions will give you cancer," or any other type of fake negative side effects. He did this for months. As time passed, he became a sort of local legend. It's always good to see that Zuma had not yet kicked the bucket. He did most of this work at level 28. In fact, I think he spent most of his time playing, just making sure he had control of this small piece of the market. For about 25% of the time the first server was active, he had complete market domination on this potion. I'm still not certain what happened to him, but I hope he's okay. And I have checked, and his potions are no longer on the market, and I've asked people, and nobody really knows what happened to him in the server. So, where did dead end? If any of you guys have information about Zuma, let me know about it in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to pin it. The Flesh. The Flesh was a fellow who was actually a guildie of mine back on Defias Pillager, the original server. He got to level 60 without wearing any armor, only using the weapon he carried on his back. Getting to level 60 is a pretty big accomplishment, but doing it without armor takes a very patient person, as basically everything hits you twice as hard. He did this twice, once on Alliance and once on Horde. Now, he certainly did a lot of mob farming, but he also did a boatload of dungeons as well, which I imagine is hard to do when I feel like most people might struggle with the idea of there being a guy on the team who is Furman not wearing armor, and the idea that if shit does hit the fan, he's most likely going to be one of the first to die. He usually refers to himself in the third person. He also wore this mask pretty much the entire time he played Horde, which, props to him, I imagine would get very annoying or even itchy very quickly. Long live the Flesh, and shout out to the Flesh. Go check out his channel, link in the description below. Eisenstone is a guy who literally died and came back to life. For those that don't know, the classic hardcore servers were getting DDoS for a bit, a process where a group of people can crash the servers and make them unplayable for all of the people on them. Obviously, for hardcore, this is a problem. So if you died, Blizzard did a one-time exemption to the rule of not bringing your character back to life and brought them back to life. He took a buff in Ironforge, and it's not really a buff, it doesn't really upgrade anything. It was originally intended as a sort of test for hardcore on normal servers. But this buff, called the Soul of Iron, was supposed to show people when you died as a sort of progress checker or flex. It is basically just a leftover component from an era of the game that really isn't used anymore. Because of this, he has a permanent pink mist surrounding him, and every time you click on his character, it tells you that he died at level 54. I saw him quite a bit back in the day, but I have no idea what happened to him. I just thought it was a pretty cool thing to see. Of course, you can't talk about the WoW community without talking about OnlyFangs. OnlyFangs is a streamer-focused hardcore group led by Sodapoppin and Tyler1, often described as the Jersey Shore of WoW. I won't go into it all that much because there are loads of other videos summarizing it, and it is a little off topic, but they created some of the biggest moments in WoW history, and it was all pretty entertaining to watch unfold. And also, maybe if this video does well enough, maybe I could be in OnlyFangs 3. Who knows? Maybe that'd be cool. Wouldn't that be cool, guys? Questing in WoW has often been criticized, as most of the quests involve killing things, grabbing things, talking to someone. It's all very simple, but to its detriment, somehow it is engaging to me. At least from levels 1 to 30 on the Alliance, as those are probably some of my favorite quests and storytelling done on WoW ever. The plot is mainly about the Defias, a group of former stonemasons now turned outlaws or rebels after not receiving payment for rebuilding the city of Stormwind. I do believe that they are right. There are multiple quests in the 50s and 60s proving this. It's very interesting to see how it all plays out, as they are one of the first threats you face in the game, and that plot continues into Westfall, Duskwood, and the Wetlands, as well as being the main threat in the first few Alliance dungeons, the Dead Mines and the Stockades. Having an engaging villain for the first third of the game made the quest much more engaging, and it made the world feel more connected. I would often be reading the quest descriptions on the long flights in between zones out of pure curiosity of wanting to know what's happening next. The situation is very dire early on. There's pretty much a big quest chain in each town where you have to go to every town and ask for help. No one is able to help each other out. Everyone needs help and is spread too thin. The corrupt nobles in Stormwind, the game's largest city, pretty much won't allow the city to send reinforcements for help. Red Ridge is facing the threat of the Iron Horde invasion. Duskwood is dealing with the undead, and Westfall is the front stage of the conflict with the Defias. They have enemies closing in from all sides, and things look pretty close to becoming apocalyptic. Or at least it looks like the main capital city of the Alliance of Stormwind will fall. For hardcore, there may be quests you may just want to flat out skip, or wait until you have more people to help you for a variety of factors. Mob strength, or just how close they are together, play a huge factor in the ultimate game of risk versus reward. If you do the wrong quest at the wrong time, you may just pay for it. Some quests are marked as being for level 17, but can easily be done at level 14. It can all be a little inconsistent, and if your gut is telling you something, you should maybe take some time to talk to someone about the quest or whatever dangers you may encounter during it. Most people out in the world are willing to chat with you and are happy to give guidance. Sometimes all it takes is asking someone about something to not lose 120 hours of progress. Just as there are quests you should skip, there are also quests that you should almost always do, because the rewards are too great to miss out on. For example, the Whirlwind Axe or the Bonebiter Axe are good examples of this, as well as the Carrot on a Stick quest and the Mistlink Diplomat. Those ones all essentially stand out to me, at least for a warrior, as the quests I may need to do might be different than what a warlock or druid may need to do. Once you hit level 30, that's when shit starts to get real. The quests start to become long. I mean really long. Level 30 is when the boys become men, or when leveling becomes much more difficult for people playing the game casually. Sometimes you'll be hopping across continents going from the southernmost point to the northernmost point and back again. And I'm not even exaggerating. It gets a little bit better at level 40 once you get your horse, but you'll be traveling long distances in the second half of the game. Now, I'm not saying that it's every quest in the game, but it is a lot of them. These quests serve to help you do a few things. Go to the bathroom, grab a drink, maybe fold some laundry, or, like most people do, scroll TikTok. Leveling starts to take a much longer time. You can usually do 1 to 10 in about 4 hours, 10 to 20 in about 20 hours, and 20 to 30 in about 30 hours. Once you hit level 30, it starts taking 3 to 4 hours a level. In the later levels, it can take up to 8 to 10 hours to level each time. This slows down the pace of progress dramatically, and truthfully, these final levels get quite grueling and can just be unpleasant to level in. You'll truthfully want to do some of the things necessary to attune to raids while leveling in your 50s, as you're essentially killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You'll also want to do as many dungeons as possible, as they're a great source of XP and some of the best gear you can get. Quick shout out to today's sponsor, Rested XP. If you're leveling in Classic WoW, Hardcore, or Retail, Rested XP is the way to go. It is the best add-on to speed up your leveling journey. It's like having a professional speedrunner guiding you step by step. No alt-tabbing, no wasting time trying to figure out what to do next. You just follow the arrow, complete the quest, and fly through the levels. And for Hardcore, it's a game changer. Rested XP shows you the safest routes, warns you about deadly quests, and helps you avoid the dumb stuff that gets most players killed. If you're not using it, you're at a huge disadvantage. I've used it myself for multiple characters, and I can honestly say it's the most efficient way to level in WoW right now. If you're interested, click the link in the description to try it out, and big thanks to them for supporting the channel. Now back to the video. Dungeons are the 5-man activity you do while leveling. It involves having 5 people playing different roles. DPS, whose job it is to get as much damage per second as humanly possible and bring down mobs. Healers, whose job it is to make sure that everyone stays alive by healing them. And a tank, whose job it is to absorb damage and take blows so that the rest of the party doesn't go down. I was usually either a tank or a DPS. It really just depended on if I ran into someone more equipped to do the job while I was looking for people to join the group. Since I was a warrior, that meant it was usually expected of me that I tank, even if I didn't think I would be well equipped to do so. Usually, tank-like characters have shields, but in Classic while leveling, it is completely valid to tank with a 2-handed weapon as a warrior. In fact, I usually found it much easier to tank with 2-handed weapons as I was able to pull more damage and maintain a higher level of threat. Threat is a non-visible way of how mobs detect which person to attack. It isn't measurable without the use of mods or add-ons. There are attacks that are designed specifically to generate threat. I'm not 100% sure, but I found that since I was able to do so much more damage in the higher levels, that using attacks that generate raw threat output just wasn't as effective as doing raw damage. I am of course excluding the ability to taunt a mob and make it attack you, as that will pretty much always pull them towards you and make them attack you, regardless of your threat output. Dungeons in WoW incentivize you to go into them by dropping the good shit. There are loads of really good gear that can drop in dungeons and last 5 to 10 levels effectively. Some bosses can kill you if you don't pay attention, so it's important to research or ask your group questions to help everyone stay alive. I learned the hard way. There are some dungeons that just kind of suck but are still good for gear. The Stockades is a pretty short dungeon that doesn't have all that much gear. There are quests for it that give you gear, but none of it is all that good excluding this ring. What the Stockades is useful for is XP. As the Stockades are in the city of Stormwind, WoW Classic Dungeon XP is a little bit different than how the game normally gives XP. These mobs don't give nearly as much XP as they would in normal WoW, but the bosses give huge amounts of XP. I'm not sure why this change has been made, maybe to incentivize people to come help you if somebody in your party dies on a boss, as they each give about as much XP as a full-length quest. Or maybe because some mobs in dungeons can respawn over time, and having that would mean they could be effectively somewhat farmed, to prevent players from only farming dungeons to level and not actually engaging with the world in the world of Warcraft. In Classic Hardcore, as stated earlier, you can only do each dungeon once a day. I think this is a good change, as I feel like if you are level 60, it should either take you a long time, or you should be forced to engage with the world, which this encourages. Getting to the dungeon can be somewhat of a long experience, as you may end up waiting for a boat or other players to arrive, or you might be waiting at the dungeon entrance itself for a class you may need to come by. Not all dungeons are created equal either. Some dungeons just have better gear for certain classes. A dungeon with good warrior gear may not always have really good rogue gear or hunter gear, but there's a genuine attempt to at least give people a shot at getting a large upgrade. They're not all well balanced, but it isn't exactly the end of the world either. It's more of an observation. Some dungeons are so dangerous or lengthy that most people say to avoid them altogether. Nomer, shortened from Nomergon, is one of those dungeons. In my experience playing through Nomer, I don't think I ever saw anybody die. It could be that so many people died in there early on that the survivors, or those who viewed those deaths, became so on guard that it made people much more careful. Nomer is one of my favorite personal dungeons because it is so different. This is the city that the gnomes originate from. When they were being invaded, they literally Chernobyled the entire city. It was actually originally going to be planned out as a zone, which makes sense because it is so large. I saw most of my party and myself die in the dead mines, as stated before, but people never avoided it as it was necessary to get really good gear. I also feel that if you're playing Alliance side in WoW, I feel like many people would agree with me here that it is an essential part of any Alliance side playthrough. Scarlet Monastery is a dungeon that I saw a few people die on the way to, as it is in a horde zone. So, since I played Alliance, that means the townspeople or guards may come and kill you if they spot you. If a guard attacks you, it enables PvP for 5 minutes, making horde players able to attack you. A gnome player I was with got hit by a guard and survived, only to get one shot by a level 60 moments later. The poor bastard. Scarlet Monastery is a bit different from other dungeons as it is essentially split into 4 different dungeons: Graveyard, Library, Armory, and Cathedral. You can usually be in the level range of 2 of these dungeons at any given time. Scarlet Monastery is another personal favorite of mine because I played it so much as a kid, and because the gear in this dungeon is so good for warriors. Those are some of my favorite dungeons. I'm not going to review every single one because that would take so much time. A lot of dungeons in Classic are quite similar to another, so it would be a little bit of a waste of everyone's time to talk about all of them in the game. At level 40, you unlock the ability to purchase and ride a mount. Depending on your race, you get a different mount. Humans get horses, dwarves get goats, night elves get sabers, and gnomes get these robot things. As for the horde, trolls get dinosaurs, orcs get wolves, tauren get rhinos, and the undead get skeleton horses. I have leveled several characters on hardcore and non-hardcore to level 40, and every single time I was able to afford a mount at level 40, it was through either gambling winnings or by having a really good piece of gear drop and selling it. I like that getting a mount feels like such a big achievement, but it could also be very frustrating at times to be level 40 and just not have a mount, as some people would get quite frustrated that they had to wait for you to hobble on over to the dungeon. It is important to note that warlocks and paladins get their mounts for free. Warlocks get this demon horse and paladins get this, I guess we can just call it a holy horse. At level 60, it costs 1,000 gold to get an epic mount, which allows you to travel even faster than the first one does. Warlocks and paladins do a lengthy and expensive quest to get theirs, but for everyone else, it's 1,000 gold. Which doesn't really matter all that much, because once you reach level 60, you don't have to focus on leveling anymore, and can just focus on getting the golden gear you need. I guess it gives you something to work toward. I can't emphasize how much having a mount saves you time. It makes it very much worth the sacrifice of getting the gold and levels to get the mount. Getting your first mount in Classic is an experience I feel a lot of people will remember. Yeah, it's true. I never reached level 60. I would say most people don't. I know that may be hard to believe to some of you because a lot of the streamers you watch probably did. The difference between me and those streamers is that they were able to do this full time, and I simply just could not. If my lifespan were 300 years, I would probably still be grinding it. But alas, I do not have forever, and simply can't afford to invest another 3 months of my life into this game. I would say a majority of the people that played this did not reach level 60. They got to a high level and died and swapped servers. I know some people may question the validity of this video, as it is essentially a review. Reaching max level is equivalent to beating the game, and how can you trust a reviewer that did not beat the game? What I would say in response to that is, leveling in Classic is the game. Jumping from zone to zone, questing, doing group quests, and dungeons is what you spend a majority of your time doing in Classic. I know some of you may not like that, but I'd like to remind you that when Classic era was WoW, a majority of players never made it to the raids at all. Though, I do apologize if this upsets you. I intentionally put this near the end of the video so that people would not click off of it. Especially if they heard that. I feel that most people won't be upset about this, but I've been wrong before. Still, if you disagreed with that point, I hope you at least enjoyed the video. I put a lot of effort into it. But it's not done yet. consequence of death is always looming over everyone when they play hardcore. They're also the reason I really struggle to play normal classic World of Warcraft now. Always having everything on the line is a very engaging way to play the game. Being forced to use every tool at your disposal to stay alive is just so fucking cool to me. It is to me an inherently more engaging and thrilling way to play the game. It has just ruined the normal game for me. It can be frustrating, especially when you get killed by some dumb bullshit. Is it fair that you can lose your character that you spent hundreds of hours on, dying to something that is not your fault? I would say yes. You knew the deal when you created your character on the hardcore server. You signed up for this. Also, it's not like your character is gone forever. You can move over your character after its death to a non-hardcore server. You just can't play with people on the hardcore server. But for many people, after their character dies, most of the time, they just never log on to them again. And they just sit on their WoW account forever. The consequences both make the game more interesting and are its greatest weakness. Once you lose a character at about level 40 and above, the chances that somebody comes back to hardcore gets slimmer and slimmer. The game is simply not designed to be played this way. Luckily, most people that play hardcore WoW know this. There's something so captivating about a story a player can have where anything can happen at any time and none of it is scripted, and there are dire consequences, not only to the player, but also to the friends they play with, the strangers they share a common goal with, or the allies they made along the way. There were several encounters I had where I was about to die and some random guy put their ass on the line to come help me. On my last hardcore character, I was questing in Daenerys. There was a quest where I needed to kill a mob, and he had buddies or guards with him. There was a horde player that saw me doing this quest, watching me off in the distance. I thought maybe he could help me, or he could do some random thing I don't know about and kill me. If I attacked this mob and he didn't help me, there was a very realistic probability that I would die. I had been sitting there asking for help for like an hour with this quest, and not a soul was on it. It may have just been a really quiet night, but I decided to make the decision, and I charged in. He stood there for a second, and I started to worry. I mean, it was a bad decision. Why did I expect him to help me? He inched closer for a second and charged in, and fought side by side with me. We killed that mob, and I was able to complete the quest. My playthrough of Classic Hardcore WoW is littered with stories like this. I died only a few hours later from the literal fucking fart stink of these gunk creatures. When I died, I crashed out on my party and moved my character over to the non-hardcore server. First thing I noticed was I saw a player named Coin Bunny. I recognized them, but it took me a second. I realized that I may have owed them some gambling debts. I hadn't seen them in literal months. Months went by of me and this other person not encountering each other once. He's got a line invited to his /Coin Bunny. Wait, let's see if he's being truthful or not.
Motherfucker's name is Coin Bunny.
I decided I needed to pay them back with interest and dividends. And if that story doesn't fully encapsulate the classic hardcore WoW experience, then I don't know what will. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Also, if you have been enjoying multiple videos, maybe consider becoming a channel member. It really helps support the channel. Next video up is RuneScape, specifically old school RuneScape. I know it's kind of a trend to hop on it, but honestly, I just really enjoyed my time playing it. I really enjoyed my time playing it a lot. I had a lot of fun playing it. I know that I said that maybe I was going to do retail as the next video, the retail rating video, but I just don't know if there's a big interest for that sort of thing. And so RuneScape's up next. I also know there's a new expansion coming out, so maybe it would be better to open up with doing the new expansion when that comes out. I think it might be more topical then, and, you know, a better time to do that video. A couple things that people were saying on the last video. Somebody talked about how, a couple things about the last video. People were talking about how the one button rotation was like, it makes you significantly weaker. So yeah, since that was like a first impression / like review from like the perspective of somebody who's not super duper familiar with the game. Yeah, I just didn't know that when I made the video. That wasn't really a video made in favor of like, oh yeah, this is like a really nuanced and like I have like 1,000 hours type review of the game. It was more like a, this is like my impressions of the game after returning to it from, you know, such a long time. Anyways, hey, I really love you guys. Thanks for watching the video again, and you do take care. Bye-bye.